Good morning. Welcome to the Licensing Committee this morning. My name is Brian Strong. I'm the Councillor for Usk and I'll be chairing this meeting.
Yeah, I'm Jim Higginson. I'm a member from Carlygott, 7 Ward, and I'm Vice Chairman of this committee.
Ewan Geely, Solicitor.
Paula Harris, Democratic Services.
David Jones, Head of Public Protection.
Linda Gorman, Principal Licensing Officer.
Lee Beach, Licensing Officer.
Councillor Jane Pratt, I represent Llanelli Hill.
Councillor Jamie Trahan, representing Alvermore Ward.
Councillor Richard Roden, Dixton with Osbast, Monmouth.
Councillor Reverend Malcolm Lane, representing Mardy Ward, a member of this committee.
Good morning, Anne Webb, a Monmouthshire County member for St Arvans and Tintern and a member of this committee.
Councillor Tony Easton, member for Dewstow and a member of this committee.
County Councillor Linda Guppy, member of this committee and member for Roggett Ward.
Good morning, County Councillor Ruth Edwards, elected member for Lintillo Cresceni and also a member of this committee.
Thank you. We'll start the agenda with apologies for absence. So, do we have any?
Thank you, Chair. I've just received apologies from County Councillor Francis Taylor and County Councillor David Evans is running slightly late.
Thank you. Declarations of interest, as and when. Thank you. Next item, item 3, to confirm and sign the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 26th of September. Moved. All happy? Thank you. Yes, Dave.
Chair and members, just to update you on the substantive item was the item regarding the 5 to 8 passenger vehicle policy, which is part of the taxi drivers policy, obviously. Just to advise you, Mr Watkins didn't appeal that decision. He wasn't very happy, if you remember. It was a unanimous decision of members in September. He did complain to our leader of the council, so obviously I gave him a factual statement of decision made by members based on the report that was presented to you in September. So just to update you, obviously the policy is as it was for the 5 to 8 passengers. He didn't appeal, but we have responded to his complaint to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Right, item 5 on the agenda. Item 4 on the agenda is the review of the annual licensing fee, and I think that Linda O'Gorman's going to lead us on that. Thank you.
Yes, the first report today is the review of the annual licence fees for 2018-2019. If I refer to 3.1 of the report, which gives you an overview of the broad range of licences that's carried out by the licensing section. However, there's only a handful that we are able to do. We can't do it for the likes of Licensing Act applications, gambling. We can only do it for premises, and that'll be at the next meeting. And that relates to a banding that we can go from and to on gambling premises. So the ones that we are looking at today are basically the Hackney carriage side of things, street trading, scrap metal dealers, boats, sex establishments as well. So that's the ones that we're referring to in the reports today. On assessing the fees for 2018 and 19, it is done on a cost recovery basis, which we have to do basically in order to set the fees. So this report highlights the actual fees, which can be seen in Appendix A, which refers to the new fee level for the year. And also Appendix B refers to the future generations evaluation form. So that's the main purpose of this report today.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Are there any questions on the charges that are going to be levied? Some have been increased. Any comments? Councillor Edwards.
Sorry, I don't think my microphone's working.
The ones, with regards to the Hackney carriage and private hire vehicles, there is a legal notice required to be put into the paper in relation to the fees. They have a right to appeal that decision, and then it'll be brought back to committee then to sort of have a look at it again. But what tends to happen, if anybody did appeal, then we would show them how the cost recovery is assessed, because it's quite an in-depth sort of financial report that's approved by the All Wales licensing panel. And it's sort of been generated from there, how we would look at things, delve down into meetings, attending, training, how many applications we process for the year, how many complaints we inquiries. It's quite an in-depth thing to work out that overall figure. So we would try and sort of work with them first and show them how we reached that figure to give them a better understanding if they did appeal. Okay.
No one else? Councillor Roden.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that officers have undertaken significant work to calculate the true costs associated with the different licences specified as point 3.4. Could you tell me if you actually incur losses on the government set fees level, and how much, and is this recoverable from the charges that we can actually adjust to make it revenue neutral overall? Thanks.
Unfortunately, with regards to the statutory fees, we can't charge over and above, and we can't sort of put it, you have to literally do it for the type of application that you're dealing with, how much it would cost for that particular application. We're not able to do that, unfortunately. It is a good point, and is one that we've been battling for a number of years to try and to be able to sort of be able to assess Licensing Act fees in particular, because the biggest bulk of the work is the Licensing Act sort of side of it, really, with the pubs and clubs and things. But unfortunately, the legislation hasn't changed, so we are tied a bit on that by the statutory fees.
Just add to that, Chair. Yeah, the net cost of licensing is about 45,000 a year. So some would say there is an enforcement role, so we wouldn't pick up that cost. But obviously, Licensing Act 2003 came in 2005. As Linda says, it's been a running battle, really. Planning's the same, isn't it? Why are we subsidising a planning service? Because the fees are governed by Cardiff. So this is obviously Westminster Act, but it is a valid point. We did manage to get some more resource 12 years ago, but it doesn't actually cover the entire cost of the service, unfortunately. But I think, we do a lot of comparisons, and that net cost is quite favourable compared to other authorities that run a lot more cost to the authority. It'd be nice to get to zero, but we're some way off.
Councillor Roden.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Is it possible to lobby Cardiff in order to gain a larger increase in the set fees, perhaps?
These are Westminster, not Cardiff, so planning obviously goes through Cardiff. It's delegated to Cardiff, Welsh Government. This comes straight from Westminster. I think certainly the groups that Linda's on, which would be the Institute of Licensing and the Licensing Technical Panel for Wales, that's the forum, I think, to take it forward. I think, like planning colleagues, is something we always raise, but certainly, yes, we'll raise it again. Thank you.
Councillor Eason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I noticed there was no fees charged under hypnotism, but are there regulations in place regarding hypnotism? Does it come under our regime, or as a health board?
It does. In fact, the hypnotism they refer to in there is the type you get in sort of pubs and clubs, like, which is a show, really, rather than actual sort of treatment hypnotism. So that's where the difference is. That's why it falls under the remit of what used to be under the old public entertainment licence, but when the Licensing Act came over, it was actually separated from there. We had to go back to the old hypnotism act, and unfortunately we're not able, through legislation, to charge a fee on that one, but we don't, to be honest with you, we haven't had an application for that.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just add to that? So obviously, related to that, obviously we've got special procedures, intimate piercing, which is coming in now in 2 days' time. So there will be a licence levy against that. So if you're doing intimate piercing, and perhaps isn't the forum to go through the detail of that, obviously the Public Health Act 2017 is now implemented this year. Lots of things come in under that. With new licensing, things will generally be with environmental health, with some certain training standards bits in terms of underage sales, in terms of obviously tattooing comes into that as well. So that's imminent.
Councillor Pratt.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask where the sort of vehicles you see on the side of the road that sell burgers and bacon rolls and things like that, where do they sit? How much would they be paying for that consent?
That's actually street trading.
Yes,
it's
yeah.
on the list with regards to the fees. So they are one of the ones that we can assess. We've got a number of fees levied there. We have day trading, because you could have the one-off sort of if they're sort of going along to another event as such, and there's no charge to go into that event, they would require a consent. So we've got the day trading. We've also got the block street trading in a number of the towns as well. So if you've got the likes of the Abergavenny Food Festival and things like that, if there's areas there's no charge going into, they've applied for the block street trading. So we've got quite a number of them sort of set up, and they refer to in section 6 of the fee report how they're assessed. Again, it's the same sort of principle: how many inquiries, how many sort of complaints, how many applications we dealt with, what was the workload throughout the year to deal with those applications, and regarding inspections and various other things that needs to be carried out.
Thank you. Councillor Treharne.
Thank you, Chair. Would we be responsible for tattoo parlours, and if so, where would that come under, please?
Yeah, that's my previous one. That's coming under the Public Health Act 2017. Is updating on that. It's been a bit messy into the local government provisions, etc. That's all being updated and reviewed. So the first provisions come in this Thursday. That covers special procedures. That will be enforced by environmental health officers.
No other questions. So the recommendations are set out 2.1 and 2.2 to approve the fees set out in Appendix A to this report, where relevant to any required public notice. And 2.2, any objections duly made regarding fees for the grant of licences for hackney carriage and private hire vehicles be brought back to committee at the earliest opportunity for due consideration. Well, I think we've gone through it. Are you all happy that we agree to those recommendations? Yeah. Unanimous. Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda is on page 21, and it's Monmouthshire Busking Code of Conduct, and I believe that we've got an expert on that. Lee Beach is going to lead us and go through the report. Thank you, Lee.
I'll go through the I'll go through the report, but Lee is here to answer any questions because he actually did the code of conduct with the police, not myself. So if there's anything sort of further you want to ask, I'm sure he can sort of bat off a couple of your questions that you want on there. Yes, and he was on the television this morning as well. So with regards to the Monmouthshire Busking Code of Conduct, this report here is to give you an insight really of to why the Code of Conduct was actually brought about. Gwent Police received a number of complaints regarding buskers, particularly in Abergavenny area, but this Code of Conduct will relate to all areas of Monmouthshire, that we can deal with because of dynamics could change. It could be more popular in one area, then suddenly it sort of goes to another town. So it is for all of it, but however, this initially came to light with the Abergavenny area. And like I said, the Gwent Police received a number of complaints. The main crux of the complaints are in 3.3 of the report, which is regarding sort of volume, poor quality music, repetitive music, duration of performance, distance to shop entrance, and use of public benches, and rude when approached by the police, to sort of move them on. It's not normally a Licensing Act function falling in within the remit of licensing, and the reason behind that is because it's incidental. People don't go there purely to sort of see the busker. They go there to shop, and they sort of come across somebody sort of playing music. However, if there is a change where you could have a busking sort of tournament and people are going there purely to view it, it could then fall within the remit of Licensing Act. But it's very rare it will. But we work closely with, Lee worked closely with the police in Abergavenny to come about this code of conduct to see how best they can manage buskers actually within the area, whilst also promoting the music and the enjoyment of it. We don't overlook the fact that it can be quite entertaining as well. We're not sort of putting this code of conduct in to sort of prevent sort of culture sort of taking place in the area. It is actually to deal with if it becomes problematic or if we don't want it in certain areas. And one in particular that the report refers to is in 3.6 of the report, which will give you an example of where a cancer charity shop is hold, and they've got a sort of quiet room upstairs for those who are either suffering from cancer or relatives or are dealing with those who have been deceased through cancer, you know, so the death of a loved one. So obviously with that particularly, we wouldn't want a busker to be outside the venue. And similarly, like I said, as I previously mentioned, dynamics could change, shops could move on. So the actual code of conduct will be scrutinised and sort of checked as well. But it gives that a little bit of extra power to deal with those and to make those themselves, the buskers, aware of, you know, how they should conduct themselves, really. Because there were a couple of incidents, I think, that Lee has mentioned, and, you know, you can answer any questions with relation to this report, where you have a busker sort of playing music and you've got another one sort of standing alongside him practically, and they're sort of raising the volume to try and compete against each other, you know. So it avoids incidents like that, and sort of and also the rudeness when being approached by sort of the police officers or other officers in particular as well. So that's the aim of this report, is to give you guidance of what's as actually how it came about, and why the police, along with licensing, were keen, and also environmental health were keen to actually get it in place because of noise nuisance and various other matters as well. So we're welcome to take any questions from you regarding the Busking Code of Conduct.
Councillor Easton.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Relating to where busking can take place, do we or the police have any ability to restrict areas where there are traffic? Because I noticed that the busking particularly is on High Street, Neville Street and parts of Frogmore Street, but it wouldn't be the bottom end of Frogmore Street, it wouldn't be the bottom end of Cross Street. Are there regulations, are there laws in place to prevent that happening where the traffic is, and does that come under the remit of what you are putting forward to us today?
So on the roads where the traffic pass by, we don't currently have any busking in those areas. There's no law that I'm aware of that would prevent a busker playing music on the pavement by a roadside. However, as I say, most of the buskers that I see do play in the pedestrian areas of our towns. The one area that we are mentioning that we are going to put in the code of conduct to ask the buskers not to play outside is Frogmore Street in Abergavenny, on the sloped area as you're going down towards I suppose the shop known as New Look and Shackleton's on the corner there. That's purely because of the nature of the premises that is there and the quiet room that they have, and the problems that our shop experienced through the summer of 2017, whereby their own staff were saying they didn't want to come in on certain days because the busking through the summer was too much for them to deal with, very repetitive, too loud, etc. Okay.
So in the other areas, it would become a police matter if they're restricting the pavements?
So, yeah, what we're looking at doing is amending it as and when, really. So if the dynamics of the town change, a similar shop opens up elsewhere, or we receive inquiries to say, can we restrict it in this area? If there was good reason, it was felt by the partnership that's put it together that would be the right thing to do, then we could certainly look at doing that. But we don't want to stop busking. We want to encourage busking to our towns. It's only that one area of the street that we want to try and ask buskers not to perform outside.
One point to mention as well, obviously this is a code of conduct, but there are other sections that would have their individual powers anyway to deal with those causing major obstructions, and one of the obstructions of the highway is the Highways Act anyway. So there is other things like Public Order Acts and Vagrancy Acts. So there's a number of other things that the police could either deal with, or highways, or environmental health and noise nuisance. So there's all manner of realm of other sort of legislation that can deal with it if it becomes problematic. This is a code of conduct, you know, to sort of give them an insight of how they should behave, really.
Okay, you've consulted, you say on your report there are no consultees, and I heard your report this morning, and a group came up which was the Forest of Dean and Wye Valley Busker Association, whatever they're called, which would cover the Monmouth and the Wye Valley areas. When you say no consultees, is that strictly true? Did you consult any, other than the police, was there any wider consultations on this policy, as you say, in wider parts of Monmouthshire, Caldecott, Usk, for example?
Yes, so what we've done, we've spoken with the buskers that we see in the town. So myself, PCSOs have approached them, told them that what we're looking to do. By and large, it's been welcomed. They pretty much all comply with it anyway. There's only been one or two incidents where buskers have done things that is quite unusual for buskers to do, i.e. repetitive music, too loud, increasing the volume if somebody else turns up. It's been very rare, however, it did all happen in the summer of 2017. That's why this come about. So all the Code of Conduct will act as a guide. So we get a lot of inquiries from buskers who are brand new, who come from elsewhere, and they ring us and ask us, what's the rules regarding busking? Now, there is no set law for busking. There's lots of different ones. So, as Linda mentioned earlier, we have highways, we have environmental health, we have licensing, but it's only, and the police for antisocial behaviour, but that's only as and when we need to use those powers. So what this Code of Conduct will do is act as a guide to tell people what the legislation is regarding busking, what we recommend they do, so that they don't get complaints and we don't need to take action.
Okay, I'll take my conversation down to Caldecott now, where we do have a few buskers now and again. I don't think, my view is, I don't think they really cause a problem. They tend to be there. Are the PCSOs are the police in the south of the county aware of the proposal we're putting forward, and in general terms, would they apply them, as you might say?
Not to my knowledge. So we've gone to Gwent Police, Monmouth Police and Abergavenny Police came back to us with some input and suggestions for what should go in the Code of Conduct. We didn't have any replies from Caldecott and Chepstow areas or Usk to that matter. But as far as I'm aware with my licensing colleagues as well, it's not considered a problem in those areas. Again, we would only take action if there were complaints made. So we're not going to go out there looking to monitor busking. We would only deal with it if there were complaints made.
Okay, thank you.
The Code of Conduct will be widely publicised as well. It'll be on the internet as well, following this sort of meeting today. You know, unless there's anything else you want further added to it. And also what we will do is actually ensure that the main stations in the surrounding areas will get a copy of the Code of Conduct as well. So they're all made aware of it, the inspectors at those stations.
So the way why I ask the questions is this has come from an Abergavenny perspective, and I do question whether you should be naming the police off the PCSO. Another matter, that's another matter. But it is Abergavenny centric. This one really, it hadn't raised its head in other areas, but I know it does in other areas. There are busking going on, so we got to be sure that across Monmouthshire we got a common policy.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Jane Pratt, then Councillor Anne Webb.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this report. I think that buskers, add a very vibrant, attractive presence to the street scene. They can, but I think that it is something we'll have to revisit, because what we don't want is for this to become out of control. And I did used to live in an area in Bournemouth where it did become out of control, and the local authority had to bring in a system where people had to book to actually busk in an area. So I'm not saying that I'd like to see that, but it is something that we have to be mindful of. I think also with Abergavenny's going to become a larger pedestrianised area. I think there's plans with the Town Council to do that. So I think we've got to be mindful that that may attract more buskers. And, you know, we may in the future have to look perhaps at designating an area so that there's a specific place. But obviously that's not necessary at the moment. But I do welcome the report, and I think it's very clear what's expected, and you know, I think it will solve the problem. I was in Fat Face last summer, one of the shops in Abergavenny, and the volume of one of the buskers outside was so loud that I actually made a comment to the staff in the shop, and I said, gosh, how do you cope with that all day? You know, it was actually spoiling the enjoyment in the shop, and we certainly don't want that to continue. But they are an important part of the street scene, but I welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Webb.
Is the performance, whatever you call it, time limited in any way, or can it be from 7 till 10 at night or whatever in the summertime?
So again, the Code of Conduct offers a recommendation from speaking with shops, buskers themselves. What we recommend is that a busker should perform for around about an hour. Then if they want to perform for longer than that they have a break or move further up the street or around the corner to a different street, just to give those shops in that area a bit of a break. Them themselves will have a break as well. And I think that's, from speaking to the buskers we have spoken to, most of them do that anyway. So we're not asking them to change.
Councillor Guppy, then Councillor Roden.
Yes, thank you. I welcome this report. I think it communicates to everybody what is expected, and also I think it may encourage buskers to towns in which, you know, we want to increase our footfall. My only comment is, if you don't know the area of Frogmore Street, I'm not quite sure the map is specific enough. I don't know if you need to sort of hatch it, the particular area, because from the map, not knowing the area, well, I do know this area, but if others don't know the area, it might they don't know where the sloped area is from this map.
Yeah, agree with that. I think we can work with the map, make it a lot better than it is currently. This is actually still a draft, really, but hopefully we can make it live soon, and then we'll amend it and as and when required.
Thank you.
Councillor Roden.
Thank you, Chair. Very simple question. Is it possible to actually reduce the size of the document to make it bullet points, maybe for easy reading for a busker? And how are you actually going to distribute the document to buskers? Could it be done from shops with problems? Just for example, in Church Street in Monmouth, last Christmas, there was a busker with a very limited repertoire and ability that drove the shopkeepers and the shoppers around the bend, and I'd rather that be avoided in future if we can do it. Thank you.
Yes, so the aim of the Code of Conduct will be to be on our website, bilingually, Welsh and English. We did discuss it with Gwent Police as well, and it was felt that if they had a request to have the document in a different language, we could translate it therefore again. Most people now can access them online using their mobile phone devices or other devices. We can, however, print some off and perhaps make it shorter, make it perhaps more of a booklet style if we wanted to, and then hand it out to people as well if they haven't seen it already.
Councillor Roden.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible for the shops to actually hand out something to people that are causing a nuisance so that they can become aware of it? Do you think that would be feasible?
It's a public document, so that seemed totally reasonable. I mean, this doesn't preclude us obviously visiting where you have a troublesome busker. We're going to pop out there and, as Linda says, not just a licensing thing and the police, but it's also environmental health will come out where they are being particularly noisy, fat face scenario. Obviously, Environmental Health will come out and say, you know, in terms of that level, and they can take a sample, they will intervene anyway. So obviously this is, the more eyes and ears we've got out there, we would support that, and yes, obviously others can give it out, it's a public document. And we'd back up and we'd prefer that, to be honest. And then if it escalates, then obviously we would send an officer around and tap them on the shoulder, perhaps.
Thank you. No further questions? No. Well, could I thank Lee for all the hard work he's put into this? I think it is a very useful document, and the shops will find it helpful if they do have any problems. Dave?
Just one final thing, we've got a TV star amongst us. So for those of you who haven't picked up BBC Breakfast News, Lee is on Wales Today, 6:30, on this very item. So he's twanging his guitar, and so that's obviously more an in-depth, but it's quite good in terms of profile, obviously, for the section that we are out and about. Something that's important to localities. So like members, it's something we want to take forward and publicise.
Thank you, Dave. Well, as I say, thanks to Lee for all the hard work he's put in on this. It is a useful document, and I think that we're fully supportive of it. If there is anything that's been discussed this morning that you want to add to that, Lee, obviously you'll do that. Yep. Okay, thank you. Sorry, moving on to item 6. This is the film classification policy. Linda, are you leading on this one? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the film classification policy, basically, this has actually been drafted by the All Wales Licensing Expert Panel, because there's a bit of a grey area in the exhibition of films under the Licensing Act, where you could have the instance of a film wishing to be shown, say in a village hall, and they've got no classification on there. There's also, under the Act itself, there's a provision where if the BBFC have actually give a classification to a film, that somebody can appeal that classification. It's going to be very rare that will take place, though, to be honest with you, because they're the experts of why they've sort of classified it in the first instance. So it is, as I mentioned in 3.3 of the report, that basically the correct stops with the licensing authority as to what they agree, really. Obviously, it'll be brought to committee, the policy itself. If it is a BBFC trying to reclassify that will be matter will be deferred to the Licensing and Regulatory Committee to say if they want to go against that classification. But there's also the incidents where you could have a exhibition film or anything like that where they want a classification put on it, and that can be done through officers level. If it hasn't been done before, but again can also be referred to the licensing committee if you look at the policy itself. So this is the aim of the report today, is actually to ensure that it is properly classified, that allowance of children, admission of children into buildings are sort of adhered to if there is a film to be exhibited. Now it is for the exhibition of a film. It's not all films can have a classification done by the licensing authority. It's only when it's actually being shown to members of the public that we're able to do this under the Licensing Act. So the policy was actually brought, like I said, through the Licensing Expert Panel to ensure that it is a uniform approach throughout Wales, how we would deal with it. And also that we have something in place, because we had one last year that wanted to have a film classification. We didn't have anything in place at that stage. They then turned around and said they didn't need it, so it wasn't needed, but we wanted to make sure we get it in place coming up now towards the summer months, and because it's now being formally approved by the Licensing Expert Panel itself.
Thank you, Linda. Any comments, any questions? Councillor Pratt?
Can you just clarify for me what the definition of, if a private group, for example, wanted to show a film to members only, is that something that needs to be classified? Are we only talking about public things here? So that's the first question. And the second question is, do we know what the frequency is throughout Wales, for example, of individuals actually questioning the classification? Because I'm just aware that it could cause a tremendous amount of work for your team if somebody just didn't like a particular film and decided to challenge us on it. Thank you.
All exhibitions, whether it's sort of public or sort of a private sort of party, if it is audience participation, so it's something we would have to look at in depth, really. You know, I mean, it's a slightly grey area in the law itself with regards to exhibition of a film, but it would depend how the organisation is. So if you had like a private club in a community centre, but there is members of the public going in, you would need a classification of the film. It's so there's the measures in place to protect children from harm going into that sort of private club. So there's a lot of in-depth thing with regards to the law itself that could be challenged, but you know, it's something that the courts would have to decide if they thought, well, it's not private, it's not public, it's private, you know. So, but it is the main crux of the exhibition of the film is to protect the children from harm, really. That's why it's there in the first place. So the answer to that is really, I would be advised that they would get a classification of the film, even if they think it's a sort of private sort of function, really. If as soon as you go down the realms of it being exhibited, you should really get a classification done on it. BBFC, I haven't heard of any challenges, but there's something I consider to a sort of question around the institute licensing if everybody had it. It's very rare you'd go against the BBFC because they are the main players, really. And that is actually in the policy itself. It's very rare you would have that happening, you know, really.
Thank you. Councillor Easton.
Thank you. You wouldn't be in a position to, you suggest you wouldn't be changing the BBFC classification, but in your introduction you say, or where a film is not classified by the BBFC. What sort of circumstances arise where a film comes forward that is not classified, and to what level of audience participation in level of privacy, public, do you sort of find the line of drawing those views?
As I mentioned there, obviously it depends on the circumstances, but the advice would be to get it classified. You could have sort of a cultural film, a local art group sort of making a film, which they haven't got the money to have it sort of classified by BBFC. So you could have an incident of sort of small groups who would like to show a film of sort of work they've done in a local area or something, you know, that's being exhibited. So then it would form within the realm of, we would view it, see if there's anything sort of in there that shouldn't be in there, you know. So it'll be an assessment that would be done. And if we felt as officers we can't really assess it because of the type of material, it could then be deferred to the licensing committee.
So taking an example, a local historical society bringing forward an archive of films, would they fall into this category if they're making a publication of their film to their own group, for example?
Yeah, it could. You know, if they're making a unique film to themselves, which has had no classification, then it could fall within the realm of this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, no other questions? Sorry, Councillor Guppy.
I would just find it was just some of the just the wording. Sorry, my computer's just gone down. On one of the points where it says the council, but I'm not quite sure if we needed to put Monmouthshire Council.
So which section, sorry?
3.7.
No, it's not 3.7. It's just throughout the document. Sometimes we say the licensing authority, and then there's other words that we've used in it. We've put the council, and I'm not quite sure whether we should put Monmouthshire.
Happy to change that.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't find a quick scan it here, but
that's okay. I'll look through the document and
I'll
change it to
email you
Monmouthshire.
the point, which one, unless my computer comes back on. Thanks.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments on the report, are you happy to accept this report to go forward? Thank you. we go on to confirm the dates of the next meeting, which is on the 13th of March at 10 a.m. And then at 1 p.m. there's a special meeting. The Rights of Way Advisory Panel will be meeting with us. Okay, Councillor Eason.
Could we have a little bit of background on this Rights of Way Advisory Panel? Because I understand that someone's got to have some training regarding these Rights of Way. I understand that this is a public consultation rather than an in-house meeting, am I correct?
Perhaps...
Councillor Eason, yes, you probably know about as much as I do at the moment. Officer Ruth Rourke has been organising it, so I will chase her up on the information and the training dates and times today. Okay.
But I understand the public will make representations at that meeting, am I correct?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, yes.
Just to say, for that the afternoon meeting, I've been quite heavily involved if it's the right report that I've been involved with, and I've taken advice, and I've been asked to make my apologies because of the amount of input that I've had, and won't be deemed as sort of open-mindedness for this for that item. So I'll send my apologies for that item.
Okay, thank you. Right. I was just thinking, the meeting this morning's only lasted 40 minutes. Whether we could possibly bring that meeting forward rather than possibly hang around for a couple of hours. Are you happy that we could try and accommodate that? Okay. Well, it just depends what's on the agenda. We won't know that for a while.
I think this is a public consultation, Chair, and I think that that has been arranged in advance. I've asked the same question.
It hasn't been published as yet,
No.
we can change the time.
Yeah. I think that if we can, we'll see what's on the agenda, and then perhaps we can amend the time. Is that all right? We'll amend the time then accordingly. Is that okay?
Could I just say, though, I'm not quite sure, because that meeting's not very far away, whether the training will be able to happen in between, in which case I think there's quite a few members that haven't received any training upon it. And yeah.
6 weeks away, so I would imagine that we could get the training arranged during that time.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for your attendance. Thank you, officers, for the report you brought forward, and thank you for the clarity with which you've helped us all. Thank you.